It's a little touristy today because we are getting into a flavoursome style of tourism storytelling later on in the show and digging into the roots of tourism right now because global tourism has crossed 1.5 billion journeys in 2025. The world's first tourists were pilgrims, and 4,000 years ago, Egyptians traveled to the pyramids. Greeks flocked to Olympia for the first Olympic Games. Romans even invented holiday resorts along the Bay of Naples. By the 1600s, Europe's elite took the grand tour to polish their education. And the first travel agency, Thomas Cook, launched in 1841 with a train trip for 500 people. So let's travel the world here on Kaleidoscope. I'm Savithri, Rodrigo. From the Kaleidoscope studios, Jaya Flavor, Sachin Unamboowe, and quick news headlines.
This is Joy Flavor and this is the Kottu episode.
Sri Lanka just stepped onto the world stage. And Kaleidoscope Vibe was right there at the premiere of Jaya Flavor, celebrating Sri Lanka on Nat Geo South Asia. Imagine prime-time television serving up kottu in Colombo, crab curry in Jaffna, hoppers on the coast, and lamprey in Galle, with some bites in between and some heartfelt love from Alutkade. Each dish unlocking a story, a landscape, a heartbeat of our island. Hosted by the vibrant Tasha Marikkar and directed by Abdelaziz, Jaya Flavor is more than food. It's a cinematic love letter to Sri Lanka. Bold, diverse, chaotic, beautiful.
Wow, this country is an amazing amalgamation of so many different communities and so many different ethnicities, and that's what makes our food so special.
From kite festivals to downing a shell of toddy, the series showcases adventure, culture, and flavor in one irresistible mix. It's a new era of tourism storytelling and definitely makes the world hungry for Sri Lanka. This is Sri Lanka, ready to be seen. Stay connected with Kaleidoscope on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn to catch all our latest stories. Big love to our amazing partners, SriLanka Live, CDB, and The Daily Morning for powering this journey with us.
Cool appetizer. Introducing CDB Self, the digital wallet that makes life easy.
Here's this week's headline makers in CDB News in a blink. Sri Lanka Customs earns nearly 160 billion rupees in 19 days, 96% of its February revenue target. Sri Lanka's migration departures for 2025 declined by 1.23% from 2024. Sri Lanka's export sector records strong 13.7% year-on-year growth in January. And here's what's happened with our markets this week in stocks, oil and gold. At the Colombo Stock Exchange, the all-share price index was mostly flat, with low investor interest leading to lower daily turnover levels. Oil prices were at 7-month highs near $66 per barrel on worries of supply disruption in the event of military conflict between the US and Iran. Gold prices moved up close to $5,200 per ounce as the US imposed a new 10% global import tariff, leading to investor uncertainty. Giant tortoises are reintroduced to the Galapagos Islands after their local extinction 100 years ago. An image of a rare white humpback whale calf and its mother wins top prize at the 2026 World Nature Photography Awards. The Greek seaside town Galaxidi engages in a colorful flower war to mark the advent of Lent.
You focus on your goals. We will take care of the risks. SriLanka Life.
Markets are shifting, risks are multiplying, and investors are asking, where should money really go? In this edition of Kaleidoscope Dialogues, we explore the answers with Sachin Unamboowe, Assistant Vice President and Head of Sales at Capital Alliance Limited, or CAL. Sachin brings a rich background spanning ecotourism, economic policy, and health tech with a global perspective and financial expertise, making him the perfect voice to decode today's investment landscape. We have a range of investment choices today. How should we begin to identify the right instruments, the right choices, the right sectors? What would these be?
So when it comes to investments, Savithri, I think it's to do with what we want out of an investment, right? And that's how we have to identify where to put our money. So, and this can change depending on our circumstances. As a, say, someone in the younger generation would look at wealth, at building wealth quickly. Someone older might look at preserving wealth. So when we are trying to identify sectors and instruments to invest in, a lot of it has to, first we have to understand why we want to invest. And then we can, depending on the risk, depending on the return we want, then we can identify different sectors and different instruments. So the core is understanding why we are investing and then finding a portfolio to ensure that happens.
So, what are the most overlooked opportunities in Sri Lanka right now?
I can name a lot, right? But in Sri Lanka, generally, everyone has very basic principles of investing. They just tend to put their money in FDs, current accounts or savings accounts, or they tend to buy clunky assets like property and vehicles. Now, that is very limiting. There is so many other instruments out there, and you can start with unit trust, there's a stock market, there's government security. So all of these, I would say, are very overlooked by Sri Lankans, right? We are very, very narrow in our investment outlook.
If you take, say, your top 3 investment choices, what would they be and why would you say they're your top 3?
Okay. Right now, low interest rate environment, my top choice would be the stock market, right? We've seen the stock market grow by about 100% over the last 2 years. Now compare that to a fixed deposit which is giving you 8% or whatever it is, right? So that's my number one. Secondly, I would look at these things called unit trusts. So there are fixed income unit trusts. A bunch of people in Sri Lanka do this. That gives you a higher return than say an FD with also the flexibility of a savings account. Third, given that property prices haven't, in dollar terms, haven't increased from pre-crisis to now, if I could afford it, I would look at property as well.
How do you balance short-term gains with long-term wealth creation?
When we look at a portfolio of investments, we need to kind of segregate it into different buckets. Chasing short-term gains comes with its own risk. If something is going to appreciate in value by 50% in the next 2 weeks, there's also a chance it can depreciate by the same amount, right? So when I look at my portfolio, I would put maybe 5 to 10% of my total wealth into those kind of opportunities, something that is potentially short term going to make me a lot of money, but it's also risky. So how to balance these two would be to understand anything short term which is going to give you a gain is also potentially risky. So you put something that you're willing to lose into that bucket. And long term wealth creation would be the bulk of your portfolio where you put it into safer, lower yielding but safe assets.
If you were looking at the stock market, for instance, which sectors would you be buying?
Post DITWA, we are seeing the government spend a lot of money on construction. So construction is a sector which naturally should do well in the next 2 to 3 quarters. When the government spends money on construction, what happens? It starts trickling down from the contractors to the laborers to the economy. So what do people do when they get paid? They go and consume. 60% of Sri Lanka's GDP is consumption driven. So then I would look at sectors like consumption. Historically, banks and in a time where the economy is growing 4-5%, banks and financial companies tend to do well. So I would look at the banking sector. So there's multiple sectors that we can look at in a growing economy. But for me, the obvious ones are these 2 or 3.
If a person has is too scared, for instance, to put their money in, also they feel that they just don't have enough knowledge, who do they go to?
Firstly, they should go to a professional fund manager, right? We manage portfolios of funds. So there are instruments called unit trusts which are professionally managed funds, which even with 100 rupees you can invest into. I put money into that, and that's professionally managed by a fund manager. All I have to do is look at the bigger picture and decide, okay, am I going to expose more to equities now or more to fixed income now? So that comes from me.
So keep exploring the world with us. Until then, we will see you next week with our International Women's Month special.